Good morning, Brenden Rendo from the Homes in Orlando team. And I'm here again with Joseph Dionne of Appli Home Loans.
Hey, what is up, Brendan? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And we are the Orlando State Buzz. We come to you every Thursday morning.
Yep.
Depending on Joe's drive to work, either 8
that Florida I-4 traffic, like I hit every interstate road on my way to the office, and sometimes it's beautiful, and sometimes it's
not so nice. Not so nice. So, well, this morning, we actually had kind of a quiet week for a change. No, like news, no new wars. Fed's not going crazy. Really, not a whole lot of like news that would really shift the market too much this week.
I think it's been pretty stable. Like interest rates, we tipped back up to the highs that they've been. The highest, the national average hit kind of like right around 5.35 on your conventional primary A+ paper, and that's the national average. And then we saw Wednesday kind of dropped a little bit. Maybe we see some good pricing today. We kind of need like 3, 4, 5 days of like positive pricing though to figure out, are we starting to approach some form of a ceiling?
Mm-hmm. When was the last time you guys saw like 3 or 4 days of like positive pricing where the rates creep down?
I don't know if I've seen that all year. Really probably October, November last year was the last time we saw that.
Yeah. Because it really has been fairly volatile year for you guys as far as interest rates are going.
Yep.
Yeah.
The positive this week was that volatility has been pretty contained, at least. Still a lot of movement, but in a much smaller range. Like we're not seeing movement like this. We're just like this.
Oh, we're not doing the quarter point jumps in a day this week?
No.
I always enjoy that conversation with you at the end of the day. Hey, Joe, you still alive? So let me ask you this, because rates have jumped a little bit. How are you seeing home application numbers? Are you seeing them still staying consistent? Because I know I've read a couple articles where some parts of the country are starting to see a slowdown in home sales.
Yeah, we definitely I feel like, and we're a mortgage company based here in Central Florida. Like, I feel like we've seen a tiny little maybe shift down, but really we haven't seen much. Like we're still seeing very similar numbers that we saw in February and November. Like the numbers, and I apologize, I'm lagging a little bit.
Oh.
Can you hear me at least?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. So I think, but those numbers kind of been consistent where I think nationally we're getting kind of a little bit different story.
Yep. Yeah, let's share some of those numbers that you and I were looking at a little bit earlier. And this is from the Mortgage News Daily. Can you see that, Joe?
Yep.
Okay. When you look at this, what we're seeing is from last year averaging about 6.5 million units being sold.
Yep.
For the year, we're dropping to about 5.7 million.
Yeah, that's a pretty big drop.
It is. And I don't know if you can see it, but way down here, this is the bottom of the inventory.
Yep.
We actually had under 2 months of inventory nationally, and we are finally starting to creep up, barely here.
Barely.
But I always love going back and looking at these charts because it makes you remember how things were going. I mean, you look back here, 2012, and this is really kind of 2011 when we hit the real highs in the inventory. You remember 2011, a buyer could get anything they wanted.
new
And
house, like,
like a pool resurfaced, closing costs, new roof, whatever you
you know,
wanted. I just got to sell
15%
my
off of
house.
the current asking price.
Yes. Yeah. You could negotiate the heck. Down here, no.
Not so
I
much.
just I just put a listing in Deltona. Nice
Hmm.
little, about 1,400 square foot home with a pool. Listed at 295, and within 2 days we had 7 offers, and we're able to put it under contract at 25,000 over with a very good appraisal gap contingency. So the right houses are still demanding multiple offers. It's so I'm still, like we kind of talked about last week. I think
Yep.
Orlando. Oh, I like the bricks.
I kind of feel like I'm like, every time I add one of these backgrounds, that's when it starts lagging again, though.
Is it? Oh,
But we're gonna stick with the bricks right now.
yeah, I kind of like it.
You're
Is
We're an
you know,
anomaly, right? Like we're
yeah,
kind of treating different.
yeah, because we're still getting the influx. Redfin
Hmm.
had an article about the number of transplants. The number
Uh-huh.
one place in the country is Miami.
Okay.
Number 3 was Tampa,
Okay.
and Lonely Orlando. Well, we're sitting at number 10. So you've got
Love the
3 of the
shit.
top 10 places to move to in the country right now are all in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as we keep getting that influx of people moving here,
Yeah.
we're the inventory being this low it's just going to stay this low, and it's going to continue
Yeah.
to be a seller's market.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're seeing one place that was very hot was Boise, Idaho, because you had a number of people moving from California to Boise. Their numbers are finally starting to drop.
Okay.
New York City's starting to drop. I saw a graph on the top places of price reductions,
Yep.
and surprisingly, Miami was one of them. But New York, Boise, Scottsdale, Arizona, all these places that were like super hot for so long,
Yep.
now are starting to cool off.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what it also is people, you're seeing people push the price, as high as they possibly can. And, I think you're seeing people starting to pull it back a little bit.
Okay.
I looked at a townhome up here in Longwood. Best comp you have was $180,000.
Yeah.
The unit we looked at was 200 square feet more, and they had it priced at $230,000. And you're sitting there going, okay, that's roughly, let's see, $250,000. Yeah, $2,500 a square foot. Come on, guys.
And it definitely it's been interesting to see kind of some of the stretches, and some of the hard part is like, the markets move so aggressively that you have to wonder, like, all right, where do we get like the appraisal piece? And something I've heard a lot of is, well, if I have multiple buyers that are willing to pay this price, why isn't the appraiser coming in at this price?
That's a great point,
And,
because I know you as a lender, that's one of the most difficult things to tell somebody is it didn't appraise. And it didn't appraise anywhere close to what you offered.
And that's the hard part is like, reality is like, just like realtors, right? Like real estate, like I don't make any money until we close a loan. Like I'm not trying to kill deals. Like, but that appraisal is there and it's done for a purpose and a reason. And I get it, like supply and demand, and like, hey, like if we've got multiple buyers willing to pay it, like great. Like if the buyer they can, quote unquote, insure themselves, meaning they have all the cash that's needed, then they can do whatever they want. but it's not sound financial decision. Like I had a conversation with an agent recently. The appraisal came in 20% lower than where the house was under contract, and the agent was upset because they were like, well, this appraiser's an idiot, and this appraiser doesn't know what he's doing, and this appraiser didn't have comps, and he didn't try to even do this, and he used this comp. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, I look in line such and such, I see the appraiser notated that comp number one was the highest and best comp in the entire zip code for a similar property in the last 900 days.
Wow.
And you wanted 20% more than what that comp was sold for. And it sold last month. Like that's, it was like, hey, like here's the 10 features of this home. And this comp sold last month and had all 10 features. Not one.
Yeah, so there's nothing you can adjust for. And I don't know an appraiser in the world. I'll tell you, that's probably got to be one of the loneliest jobs.
Yep.
I don't know an appraiser in the world who's out to kill a deal. I just like you are out. We're all out to make it, but at the same time, reality is reality. Numbers are numbers. You can't take, and have 3 comps in the same subdivision that are basically the same model, all sell for $300,000, and expect, because you got the house under contract for $400,000, that you're going to appraise at $400,000. It just doesn't make sense. I know one thing I do currently is I look at pendings sales. And the reason for that, you froze, Joe.
And that,
there you go. There you are.
I can see you guys. I hear you.
Okay. Yeah. But I use pending sales and look when they're closing. And thankfully, most agents are very gracious. And you can call them and say, hey, are you on schedule for closing? May I ask, are you getting list? Are you getting above list? You can usually figure it's going at least list these days without too much trouble whatsoever. But you've got to be able to know that, hey, well, it's closing in 2 weeks. If we put it under contract, I'm not going to get that appraiser in there till at least I'm going to wait 2 days to make sure it's recorded in the MLS properly.
Yeah. Before
I have that appraiser go out there, because I know now I've got a better comp. I've just increased the value of that property by $20,000. So that helps my buyer. Yeah. So it is a frustrating game because you want to be as close as you possibly can. And we, as a realtor, that's part of her job. I had I was telling you, I'd done a CMA for a client and sent it over to another realtor, and he was ripping my numbers apart and telling me that a garage is worth 12 to 15% of the value of a house. And I'm sitting there going, I got a $300,000 house. You're telling me that garage is worth $36,000? I have never seen an adjustment for $36,000 on a garage, ever.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever will, unless it's got a nice lift in it, something that Warren would like, do some work on the cars. But I can feel you, and that is a frustrating part. But that's where it's our job, to be as honest with our clients as possible. That, hey, look, here's the numbers. When you're making an offer, you got to sit down with the comparables and say, hey, look, this is what's closed. This is what is closing.
Yep.
I've called the agent. Yeah, it's selling. He wouldn't give me the exact number, but he's telling me, it's going to be at least list. Hey, that's cool. Yeah. I can calculate from there a little bit. And this is where we got to wait for this to close in order to do the appraisal.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble. And the lenders, our appraisal is going to come in under what we want it to. Yeah. And that's how you have to do it today. Yeah. Is you got to look at past and pending sales. Yep. For the value of the home.
And that's, and you mentioned it's like your comparables, like, have to be within reason. And I get it, as a
Mhm.
as a listing agent, you want to get the best, and that's why it's like you want to see those appraisal gaps. You want to see, because that's going to help your client get more money, right?
Mhm.
As the seller. But when I look at it, I see a little bit. Sometimes I see that challenge of, well, what comps are we utilizing? If you've got a manufactured home at Christmas,
Mhm.
you can't use comps in a manufactured home 10 miles away.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're
It's not the
3
same.
zip codes over. Like it's not a comp at that point.
Mhm.
And that's where I'm seeing a little bit of, I see a little bit of that kind of like creative, valuation on, that kind of that broker price opinion or whatnot when it's being comped out, or we see these comps and I'm like, oh, okay, like, yeah, you've got this house in Sanford. This is great. And it's a beautiful house. But, I really don't see, being able to use a house in Heathrow as a comp when you're 8 miles away. Like, you're in a
Yeah.
totally different market. Like, it's completely different. It just
Mhm.
is.
Yep.
Different zip code, different address, different neighborhood, different, like, so you can't use those. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of agents kind of blanketing and kind of saying, hey, like, all right, well, I can't get the price I want within 2 miles. So let me jump it to 10 miles because they feel that, a sale a month ago, 10 miles out is going to be more accurate than a sale 6 months ago within the same neighborhood.
Within the same neighborhood.
And that's
Yeah.
not the case. Like,
That's not
you
how an
know,
appraiser is going to look at it.
and the hard
They're going
part,
to they're going to start in the neighborhood, find comparables in the neighborhood. Generally going to go back 6 months.
yep.
Um, one thing that's interesting is I'm curious if they're, because we have taken that jump, we're still doing that about 1% a month
Yeah.
consistency. Um, I'm wondering if you're going to start seeing that come back into play in the value of
Mhm.
houses. Some that sold in December, January, February, March, getting a 3%
Yeah.
price adjustment simply because of the time.
The time. And
You know,
I haven't, like, on the most recent, I think anything that's sold like this year, I'm not seeing an adjustment. I'm still seeing a price adjustment for things that sold 6 months or 9 months ago that are being used as
hmm
comps by appraisers. So I think we're still seeing it, but I am curious, like you said, are we going to get to that point where they're making adjustments for things that sold 90 days ago or 60 days ago to give that little bit more value?
hmm
I'm really curious to see how that kind of starts to play out. And a big thing is, like you mentioned before, appraisers want that home to close, lenders want the home to close, realtors want the home to close. But at the end of the day, every entity within that has a license that
yes,
allows them to make a living and to support themselves and their families. So an appraiser is not going to do something just because a realtor bullies them because it could cost their license,
yeah,
and if they are willing to do that, those are the people that we want out of the industry.
yeah. Well, that was the whole reason why they came up with the appraisal management companies,
Yeah.
because what had happened in 2000, 6, 7. I mean, you called your favorite appraiser, hey, this is the number I need. Make it. Can you make it work? Oh yeah, I can make that work. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, don't want to know how, but hey, have fun. Yeah.
Yep.
And that was the whole point, was to pull us realtors away from the appraisers so that we were not bullying them anymore.
There is less influence over that
There's a
price.
lot. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Appraisers over
I
there being like, hey, you got new rocks in your landscaping bed, $2,000.
that's $10,000 value.
You have that receipt? No? Okay, 8,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, I remember that. It's just, you'd be like, oh, do you think we can?
yeah.
And they're literally, there were groups of people who had a system. You know,
Yeah.
they had used the same appraiser, same lender, and they just, and
Yep.
that's part of what got us into a lot of trouble.
And
You know,
I think what we're entering a marketplace right now, or a time right now, where a year ago, throw a dart at a board,
Mhm.
you can get it sold. Now there's a lot of strategy and actual skill that I think is going to start entering the equation, where who you work with as your realtor is going to matter more and more than it's mattered in times past.
Yeah, we're going to, and I say this because I'm actually kind of looking forward to it, is pull people out of the market who don't really have the skills,
Yeah.
who haven't seen a down market.
Yep. We're already seeing it on the lending side.
Yeah. Well, with the reduction in
refinances,
how many companies have you read recently that with layoffs? I think one of your biggest is what?
Every day we're seeing it. We're seeing, you saw like Better Mortgage is on their like third round of layoffs in 6 months. And they're like, this isn't like laying off like 100 people at a time. They're laying off like 500, 1,000, 18. Like I think their reduction. Don't quote me. I think they've reduced their staff by almost 50% in the last 6 months. Like it's been a massive number of layoffs that they've done. But they were refi driven environment, and the hard part is when rates are low, like, hey, like rates are low, like refi, it's easy. Like, oh, well, you're at a 5 now, rates are at 3. Not much sales have to happen. Not much skill has to happen. You don't have to really show numbers. Like it's a consumer is like, well, that's 2% less than what I have now. Makes sense. Done. Now it's like, hey, you need to have skill. We need to review files. We go to purchase driven marketplace. Now we need to understand DTI ratios a lot more and a lot better than we ever have, because you have an end date on a purchase. A refi, hey, if we miss close date, who cares? Funds are in their home. Purchase,
you've got
that luxury.
You got well. You and I look at what we ran into. I had the home in Oviedo under contract. Got a pre-approval from a group in California.
Yeah.
And my seller was incredibly gracious. Gracious. I actually gave him like an extra month to try and close the thing. The home was vacant. And they still couldn't do it.
No.
And we ended up putting it back on the market and reselling it.
Yeah, and the crazy part is you guys reached out and told the seller like, hey, if we're gonna do, or the buyers, and said, hey, and what did I sit there and say? I was like, hey, we talked to a client, we got all the data, we got all the numbers, and there's not a deal here.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
And that's what you want, and that's one reason why I work with you consistently. You're my top lender. Is no BS. Give it to me straight. But at the same time, you'll give me a solution. And that's the teamwork that you need. Okay, we can't do it this way, but if you do this and this, within 30 days, I can have you here.
Yep.
And that's what you don't get from other lenders. They're just, okay, can't do it. Let's move on to the next.
Yeah. And, we just came in, and, my business partner, Nick, like, he just got a phone call from an agent, and they were, it's a purchase, $20,000+ earnest money deposit, and Nick gets called in with 2 weeks on a 35-day contract. So they got more time, 35 days, 5 weeks, and we got 2 weeks left, and Nick gets called in to save the day, because the other lender pre-approved the client. Then when they got under contract, said that client no longer qualified for the home that they pre-approved, and they needed to put $350,000 down on like a $500,000 home. And they had to pay out debt, and they had to do all this. And we looked at it, and Nick reviews it, and he's like, what is this person talking about? And, in that 2-week time, like, and this is what working with an expert makes sense. Not only were we able to do them at the 20% down that they had, we helped them improve their credit. We actually helped them go from like a 640 credit score to a 710. So in that 2 weeks,
that helped.
We were able to rescore them to get a much better rate and pricing than what they initially qualified for. And we still closed on time, but it took, like this other one, when we pulled this borrower's credit, there were no other credit inquiries, which means that they have an approval letter in which somebody never actually pulled their credit. Now, no. But you know what? They had a pre-approval letter, and it was one of these big national banks that a lot of people recognize, and it was and obviously the buyer's agent didn't think to question it, listing agent didn't think to question it, like, hey, like, we're good, and that person never even pulled the credit.
Wow.
Like,
wow.
and clearly skill wasn't an issue because
That's frustrating because I know one of the first things I do with all the offers, I get on the phone, I call all the lenders, and you're hoping they're telling you the truth,
but you don't know.
which is scary.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I was in the business, as you know, so I ask them questions that maybe some other realtors won't ask, like, "Oh, so you have the automated underwriting? Did you run D or LP? Huh? Did you run D or LP? Well, what do you mean? Okay, you lying to me."
Yeah, you're like, I'm not moving forward with this.
Yeah. It's like no. Is it a pre-approval or pre-qualification?
Yep.
You just told me it's a pre-qualification. No.
Yeah.
No, too risky.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and that's the big piece right there. I think it's all about the team you work with. It's making sure you work with, if you're a consumer, you're working with skilled professionals. There's a lot of people in industries right now where I think you're going to see a lot of mortgage companies and shops and brokers and lenders. You're going to see a significant reduction. There were a lot operating on razor thin margins when the market's easy, and they can't, and they're making their margins even smaller just to keep the lights on, so to speak. And that's the hard part is that lender going to be open in 30, 60, 90 days? Maybe not. We're going to see.
Yeah. Oh, I got quoted, 4%. Really? When everyone else is sitting here at 5 and you got quoted 4?
Yeah.
Question it. You got to question.
Hey, make sure, and I'll be frank. I'll talk to clients. You got 4? Is it locked in? Show me that LE. Is it locked? Okay. Hey, here's your LE. See this little piece right here that says locked in? No. They can promise you whatever. I can send you something that says this. Because it's not locked in. Like, they're not giving you real pricing.
If it's not locked in, it doesn't mean anything.
If it says yes, then you're good. Like, move forward, go for it. Like, if you got something that's so stupid, insanely cheap that I'm like, I'm going to lose money if I do the deal. There's no money to be made and I'd have to pay you to do that deal. I'm not going to do it, but I'll encourage you to do it if it makes sense. Make sure that person can deliver though. If you got a 30-day contract, and they're not going to close you in 30 days, doesn't matter what rate, you're risking your earnest money deposit. And if you lose that EMD, now all of a sudden you don't have enough money to buy another home because you just lost your $10,000, $15,000 EMD and you only have $30,000 in the bank. Are you willing to take that gamble? Are you willing to take that risk? Like, these are things, and those are the hard conversations that as a lender, like I steer very
as a realtor,
but as a realtor, you guys are having these same questions with clients.
Yeah, it always scares me when I get a lender from out of state that I've never worked with. I go on Google and look at their reviews.
Yeah.
Do they have any? Number one, or how are they? Number two, because this, what a lot of people don't realize, a lot of times it's a domino effect where this sale affects this sale, affects this sale, affects this sale. And if this one doesn't fall, there's a lot of people you're going to hurt on the back end. And you don't want to do that. You never want to do that. You want to do everything positively to get your people to the table. And 98% of the problems can be avoided up front. 98% of them. There may be something that pops up, but 98% of the time you can avoid it. So
today's lesson, rates are relatively stable, but make sure that you use professionals.
Exactly. Because I know you and I could probably sit here all day and horror story after horror story, solving problems after solving. That'll
be our Halloween edition.
That you and I have always both worked really well at is when people have problems, where do they go? They come to us. We're the problem solvers. We love it that way. So, anyways, interesting. I think I don't know how we got there, but it was kind of fun. Take care. Have a wonderful day. And we'll see you next week. Bye.